All right, so let's dive into ETFs today. Take a look at the market, how things are going within not only the potential for spot ETFs, but also the future side of things with Ethereum. We'll break into all this for you guys today. My name is Paul Bear. Welcome back into Tech Path. All right, so we're going to get started, but I want to thank our sponsor, and that is Tangem. If you guys are looking at securing your crypto and you want to do it in a self-custody way, this is one of the options you can use. You can use the hardware devices, you can use the cards. This is one of the best cards that I've seen so far. I've tried a bunch of different ones, and I like Tangem, and it's a very intriguing model. There's a couple things you can do with it as well. If you go over to their website, just go to tangem.com, click on Get Tangem, and now you can get this new wallet, which is just recently launched, and you can do this where it gives you your optional seed phrase if you like going that route, or you can go with the classic wallet where it auto-generates this stuff. It's NFC, ties into a real slick app, and very easy to use, very secure. Also, we've done a couple of videos on the security for Tangem, but check them out. Make sure and use our link down below to help the channel out. All right, so let's get into a few topics here today, and I want to go over to Eric Balchunas and what he had to say about the current status of what's happening in the ETF race. So let's take a look at Eric's clip right here.
It's a special day, Katie. This is an unprecedented day in the history of ETFs. Never seen this happen before. We have a multitude of Ether and Ether plus Bitcoin futures ETFs launching all on the same day. Remember when BITO launched? That was 2 years ago. Those Bitcoin futures, only one launched, and it got like all the volume basically. So the SEC was like, well, we don't want to do that anymore. Let's have them all out to have fair play. So here's the ones all in the market trading today. There's their volume. I kind of sorted it by the most volume as of noon. Total of $2 million trading. Not that much. Although compared to a regular launch, it's a lot, but it's not a lot versus BITO. So little less interest in here, interest in these, and it's going to be an interesting to watch these ETFs jockey per position, because the one that gets the most volume typically gets the most assets and has a lot of pricing power. So Katie, this is a derby, I call it, and we're going to see who wins. It's very early still, though.
All right, so he hit on a couple things there. One of the things that he hit on, of course, is the issue of who wins this race. Now, this, of course, could also start to have a lot of implications of how spot ETFs may end up also positioning in the market, especially when you get people and investors that become more and more aware of what's happening right here. And obviously, you saw the list there of all these different ETFs. Of course, VanEck, one of the leaders out there on the space, one of the first that were filed, now currently around 66 on their expense ratio, 0.66 on their expense ratio, one of the lowest. Total net assets about 840K right now. I think they were the number 2 on the list that we showed right there. A couple other things that are happening right now. VolatilityShares canceled their ETH ETF plan for their futures, and they didn't really see an opportunity for it. I would kind of agree with that in the sense there's just so many now into the market, so it's really going to become a marketing play of how those ETF futures do, and also the institutions that also are out there promoting it, what they're going to do in terms of adding value to it. VanEck, we talked a little bit about yesterday. Not that we're saying you should go that route if you are checking a future, but they are doing some unique things, which I thought was interesting. If you didn't catch that video, go back and check that one. We did a full breakdown on all that good stuff. The other thing that's happening right here, you have Tim Draper reflecting on Bitcoin ETF as Grayscale announces a new Ethereum fund. Now, there's a couple things that he notices, and just full transparency here. Tim Draper, one of the biggest Bitcoin holders out there. So he's talking his book, just so everybody's aware of that. And if you don't know who Tim Draper is, go out and Google that. This is one of the PayPal Mafia guys. These guys have been around for a while. ETF, what he's talking about here is the Grayscale ETF, or the Ethereum Trust, represents around 2.5% of the ETH in circulation and is the largest ETH investment vehicle in the world. Currently, the Ethereum underlying trust is discounted about 30%, but the ETH would be worth about 5.1 bill right now. Also, to Draper, approval seems to be a matter of time, and he's surprised it's taken so long, so I'm not sure why the SEC approved futures and not the spot trading, so it seems a little capricious. That's a little dig at the SEC. I don't know. I still think that it's going to be Bitcoin first as a spot. I don't see the potential here for an ETH first. It could happen, though, with the fact because of Ethereum potentially falling into that commodity category, much like Bitcoin. And the demand would be the other aspect that would play into this is, whether or not we're seeing a lot of demand. Others that I think will play into this, of course, if you think about demand, you have to look at Solana. Solana now leaving Ethereum in the dust, especially on institutional inflows. A couple of points here that you can kind of see. Solana actually outperformed Ethereum over this little bit of launch day for the ETF futures. So kind of interesting right there. I want to jump to a clip real quick. And when you look at, when we bring these clips in, this is Raoul Pal talking a little bit more about not only Solana and some of the big things that they're doing right now, but also I think the thing we've talked about is this connection to Visa and how important this partnership is. Listen to this clip right here.
I see Tolly as a thought leader. He's accepting of others around him. He builds bridges, doesn't destroy them. I see a very engaged developer community. And people are really, really passionate about building their ecosystem and building their technology. So why Visa using Solana? It's because it's fast. It's fast. It does a good job. It's not Ethereum. It's different to Ethereum. For Visa to make a wrong decision is not that easy.
All right, so as you can see there with Raul, I mean, he hits on all the markers there. Yes, Solana is doing a lot of innovation. We'll probably see even more here coming from Breakpoint coming up in Amsterdam this fall. Other things in terms of the partnership, and we've talked about this before, is this importance level. And especially with Visa, because Visa is a critical player in the world financial system. If Solana gets this right, I think they write their own ticket for the future. And in other words, I think this becomes one of the major blue chip assets that are out there. If they misstep, this could really hurt the brand. So there's a lot on Tolly's back right now, for sure. A couple other things, and just to kind of show you, here was Sol outperforming ETH on ETF day. So a little bit of that. I'm sure everybody was kind of giggling at that situation. Other things that are happening is Chainlink. What are we going to arrive at eventually is an internet of contracts. This is talking about all of what CCIP unlocks here. Listen to what Sergey had to say.
And so I think what we're going to arrive at eventually is an internet of contracts where you can access some contracts over here, but not other contracts over there. But you will have a single standard for that connection. And that is what CCIP is meant to be. It's meant to be similarly to TCP/IP, the way that you connect all of these different blockchains, whether they're public or private. And so that world of an internet of contracts is where I think, well, Web3 will end up.
All right, so he hits on a lot of good stuff there. Web3 ending up on this whole internet of contracts. I totally agree with that, because if you look at the infrastructure that really built Web2, TCP/IP, he was mentioning that was kind of the resolution protocol for being able to, for you to dive into from one website to the next. The same thing I think will start to happen when you look at Web3 integrations and how smart contracts will play into this whole permissionless concept. All right, so let's take a quick look at the daily hodl. Chainlink secures partnership, obviously, with a bank, as Nazarov is talking about Swift and the project going forward and how well it's going as a whole. And this is kind of what he's talking about. This is where smart contracts will, especially when you look at how Chainlink kind of connects all the dots, is going to be huge. If you know anything about oracles and their importance level, Chainlink is a very unique project that really ties into. A couple of notes from the article here. CCIP could be what catalyzes the adoption of tokenized assets by institutions. Big deal. This can vastly simplify the user experience of interacting with digital assets while providing financial institutions with a way to serve client demand without substantial modifications to their existing infrastructure. That's probably the biggest statement in this entire article, and that is institutional finance not having to completely rebuild the wheel and be able to integrate digital assets on the fly. That's where Chainlink starts to get very, very interesting. Let's go over to a clip here of what they're talking about. Listen in.
We've released, together with them, a report summarizing the findings of our work together. We were able to use Swift messages, widely used existing banking standard, for initiating blockchain events through CCIP. We were also able to connect multiple private bank chains so that different banks on their respective chains could transact with each other from their chains. And we were able to connect those private bank chains to public chains so that those private banks could also transact with public chain contracts like DeFi. And so all three of those goals were successfully proven to work securely, efficiently, and in a scale.
All right, so he hit on all those points that he was making in the article made, is this interoperability, the capacity for being able to really kind of remake the financial layer that exists out there. And if you think about what Swift is trying to do, remember, it's a messaging system that transacts billions and billions of dollars daily. Them being able to leap forward into blockchain is going to be critical for them to compete with the likes of XRP. Speaking of the likes of XRP Ledger's capability to handle 293 million transactions daily can make XRP a global utility asset. That is true. It's one of the reasons XRP is such a popular project, but also the uniqueness around what XRP does. So very interesting, 3,400 transactions per second. Other things you have to look at is it can facilitate around 240,000 transactions in a minute, which is like 12.24 million transactions per hour. So I think that would be pretty close to the entire internet. I'd have to look at that, but that is insane to see that many transactions in 1 hour. If you look at this around XRP, one advantage they have, or a couple of advantages, they have legal clarity. It's not a security. It's faster, cheaper, greener than any other crypto, and has the biggest partnerships. I would agree with that. So there is a lot of benefits for that. I think we are yet to really see what XRP, the token, will do. I know we have a lot of people that watch the show on XRP, but from XRP, and love to invest in it. But I'd love to get your feedback. If you guys like XRP, or maybe another token that you think might fall into the ETF craze, what would it be for you guys? Just drop a comment down below. Make sure and smash the like button if you do like these kind of breakdowns as well. All right, so further into this, a couple of things Ripple we're talking about. Pleased to share Ripple is on their year's FinTech 100 list for our work in modernizing cross-border payments. Totally agree that they should be on here in the FinTech list. And this is coming from CB Insights. This is traditional media, guys. So this is another, I would say, milestone for crypto in general of being able to get these kind of recognitions. This is part of how institutional capital comes in. It's also part of how adoption starts to recognize this. There's a lot of people that read CB Insights that have nothing to do with crypto. They're going to start looking into companies like Ripple and say, what's this crypto thing all about? That's what you have to watch for. All right, so let's take a look at a potential, another candidate that could play into this, and that is Avalanche. If you think about Avalanche and what is their play institutional, they have this new program and project around a project called Evergreen. So let's take a look at what they're talking about, how this would connect to institutional finance. Listen in.
Evergreen subnets are a template for launching your own controlled blockchain network. Major financial institutions like T. Rowe Price Associates, WisdomTree, Wellington Management, and Cumberland, and others are already taking advantage of Evergreen subnet capabilities and testing out the merits of on-chain finance. In an Evergreen subnet, the admins can actually set the rules to ensure that their chain and their network participants are legally and regulatorily compliant with any local laws and regulations. If you're trying to abide by regulations, you have to report the location of any and all networks or network computers that are given access to the information that your network is storing. All validators want to pass a KYC AML check. So if you want to make sure that every single validator that's validating your network is regulatorily compliant, then you're going to have to allow them to join your network. And this theme comes up pretty frequently in the reasons why anybody would want to deploy one of these subnets. The institutions can therefore leverage the power of public blockchain development, interoperability, and composability while enabling features historically only possible with enterprise blockchains.
All right, so I like that. At the same time, we're talking about major institutional finance here, so it's very possible they may want to do and launch their own blockchain rather than riding on, subnets of another chain. So that could be one angle in which it's done. It'll be interesting because maybe we're going to see all sorts of institutional levels kind of engage on this, and it also might be kind of the first step. Maybe they start with something like Evergreen and then advance up into something like their own blockchain, or developing within their own framework. I imagine that the likes of BlackRock, VanEck, and some of the others would probably, even Fidelity to a certain extent, will probably go maybe off the reservation and go their own route. I want to go over to something that is happening over in Hong Kong. This is the Securities and Futures Commission in Hong Kong. And you'll notice there's only been 2 approvals here. And one of them, of course, is Hash Blockchain Limited, which is the exchange Hashkey. And there's interesting things happening here, because if you look at what they're doing here within within HashKey, let me kind of go over to CoinGecko here. This kind of shows you HashKey just as an exchange, some of the products which are typical right there, and then the unverified is right there, Avalanche. So could we see Avalanche moving in to HashKey next? Now remember, Avalanche is very, very popular within Asia, and likelihood is that we could see a lot of penetration into the Hong Kong market for sure on this. And if you look at this tweet right here, HashKey Hong Kong compliant exchange set to launch AVAX trading right there on HashKey. And of course they show this just because they're a screenshot, but showing Avalanche and also Matic potentially coming soon. So, you know, this would be another one. Could we see Avalanche in ETF land? Maybe even into international markets where an ETF on Avalanche could come into it. I'd love to get your feedback on this. We'll end up with a clip from Yatsu talking about whether or not this ETF craze is going to continue, or have we seen the last of it? Listen in.
For particularly the TradFi guys, they understand its appeal. It's not just, is it a better, stronger, or maybe more useful asset, or more, let's call it, flexible asset. It's also about where the next generation is thinking where the value of these assets are. And so I think for the TradFi managers around the world, they understand that appeal because that's what they do. Of course, starting with the biggest ones like Bitcoin and Ethereum, but I think it's going to translate further down. In Hong Kong, you have something similar. In Japan, you have something similar. So these various countries already allow for that to happen, which then might open the door pathway for things like more ETFs, not necessarily related to Bitcoin and Ethereum, but also for different type of token infrastructure. The Web3 place that is in the lead, I would have to say, is Hong Kong. No regulator in the world that has sent a message to its biggest bank saying, you need to open bank accounts for your potential crypto clients. Also, the HKMA has issued a tokenized green bond. You have ETFs coming out. I think listed 15 or 16 different tokens that were permitted for basically retail token trading, all within the span over just the last 9 months. So there's incredible progress.
I think it's a good thing that Hong Kong has moved so swiftly here in terms of some regulatory leadership, because I think it is going to put a little bit of pressure on the United States to get off kilter here and start to move into a much more positive stance on crypto. And I love to see this because the more pressure we have from major entities that especially have ties with mainland China, I think you're going to get attention of regulators. And let's be honest, guys, Hong Kong is going to be a small market compared to what's going to happen in the US when the US decides to actually pull the trigger on this. When they do, that's when you're going to see a massive adoption scale like nothing you've ever seen before. What we're seeing in Asia right now, it's great, but Bitcoin is still hovering and struggling at around 27,000, 28,000, Ethereum around 15 to 1,800. These are not booming times when all of these markets are exploding like that. But I do agree with Yatsu. We are going to see some ETFs start to flow into these lower chains. And I shouldn't say lower chains, just these alternate chains, and most likely the ones that are doing the best in terms of partnerships and visibility, because that's a big key in mainstream adoption, is the visibility of projects, just like on a stock that starts to get high visibility for it to see really a lot of trade action. So, all right, so we're going to get into all that for you guys. This week we'll cover some more stuff around the ETFs, but if you're not in our Diamond Circle, make sure and get in now. One of the best places to actually get content, additional content. We have good news for you. We've got a new trading component that's going to be part of the Diamond Circle that will be launching probably in about the next week. So you'll get additional trading analysis. It's only going to be available over on the Diamond Circle for now. So make sure and join. All you have to do is click the link down below and jump in there. If you guys want to catch me on X, it's @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.